A staple I do in all interviews in order to start things off is to ask that you elaborate a bit about your work and this particular role for those not familiar with it.
Hello, I play Wilhelmina in Dragon's Dogma 2. And um, my general work is acting or anything creative, really. I work in theatre. I also work in bits of TV and screen when they come in, and in voiceover. What else can I tell you? I don't know if you have it in America, but Airwick, I'm currently their voice, which is a company, cleaning company.
In Dragon's Dogma 2, you provide the performance for Lady Wilhelmina. Could you please tell us a bit about the character and the situation she finds herself in?
Yeah, she's sort of a bold woman. She really, really sticks to her guns, but she's very warm and kind, and I think generally just a nice person who's been put in very high positions in her head and is going to push through whatever comes her way. So yeah, she is a proprietress at the Rose Chateau, and she runs the place. She keeps things moving, but she has lots of stuff going on underneath from her past that she intends to see through, is the word I think I should use.
When preparing to perform as Wilhelma, were you given any initial direction in regards to the character, just in terms of an example of prep work to get into the mindset of this particular performance?
Yeah, so the audition, I remember the audition being I played her very differently to in the audition. I played her very differently to what we ended up with. Um, I felt she was very still. She was quite. This was in the audition. Very quite like snake-like. And then when we got into doing the motion capture, the body is of somebody else, but I'm face and voice. So it was I was having to match my voice to the woman who'd done the body, who has done a brilliant job. It's just so again really snaky and really sort of strong. So I was matching my voice to her. And originally I'd gone in with my accent, which is East Midlands slash North England, and the version of Wilhelmina they wanted was quite a little bit more refined, not as much I in the sound, but a little bit more sort of a softer sound that was a little bit lower and a little bit more forceful, and a bit more RP with the sound of an ah still being in there. So I wouldn't say grass like they would do in London. I'd say grass, like in America. So yeah, my version of her was quite different to what we then ended up with, which I'm really happy that we got to what we have because I feel like she's a force.
The character has a very mysterious angle to her, particularly in how players will first meet her. Could you talk about that from your perspective, being initially a mystery to the player, and how that kind of opens up over the course of the narrative and your interactions with her?
Goodness. Well, I will say that I we did things in terms of like the how you meet the character, how we were creating and recording and building wasn't it was chronologically, but it was all on one day. So 2 days, I think actually, 2 days. So what I sort of found was that I didn't really know whereabouts in the story Wilhelmina would be coming because I was doing everything in one batch. And then gradually over the 2 years I was recording it, I would come back and be like, okay, where are we now? Okay, great, okay, cool. And can you just play me back my voice again? Because I have no idea what I was doing. Which was again super fun to keep on touching back into her story, but not really having much of an idea of where she was going to be coming in, and what her story meant to other characters' stories, because we weren't really told very much because the NDA was so strong. So we were very much tunneled into this is what your character does. Don't worry about all the rest. This is what your character does, and this is her story. So I don't think I've answered your question very well there at all.
I think you kind of went over it pretty well and kind of got to it.
but yeah, I would say that her story evolves quite quickly. I think you meet her at a time where she's made a decision and she will be doing it. and you're just coming along for the ride. And if you can get involved with it, then great. But if you don't, then it's going to happen anyway. Yeah, she's cool.
So Wilhelma has a bit of a romancing option with her character. What was it like to bring that connection to the player to life?
Really fun, really fun. I think you have to also remember that we were, so again, physically, I wasn't doing anything physically with my body, but we were facially doing everything. So the scenes that you see, the sort of cutaway scenes that you see, we were still doing those scenes physically, but with massive, massive headsets on with the cameras. And so you had to still be aware of what your counter actor or your fellow actor or the person who was doing the body was doing to be able to make sure that eye contact was in the same place. Which was really fun because then you'd kind of, I felt like I could just keep trying new things really, because someone else had already done the physical side of it in terms of the body. So I had to now just be more playful with what more can we do vocally to make her sit in this body that has already been built. So I found it really fun and I really enjoyed it. And it was a challenge definitely because you're doing someone else's physicality, which is fascinating, but it was a challenge that I completely loved and would definitely do again.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about you jumping into the shoes of someone that's already done the motion capture. Could you explain that process maybe a little bit for someone that's not familiar with how that kind of works from the voice acting to the motion capture perspective?
Yeah, sure. So motion capture, you would start with the motion capture. Sometimes it varies. It depends what sort of game they want, or if they want to record motion capture. So for example, our motion capture was recorded, I think it was recorded in America for the bodies. And then a lot of the voices, which you'll hear, are English or certainly from around our part. So they were then putting vocal and facial capture into the bodies that were already built. So that was really interesting because you were watching something that had been done a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago with people who had had their own version of the character that you were now voicing. And you were matching that with the voice that you were now delivering. So we had a massive headset and it had a huge camera on the front with a light, and it makes you look lovely, as you can imagine. But it records your facial expressions. So her facial expressions are mine, her head tilts are mine, her like little weird things that she does with her face are mine, but the body of this person doing sort of all of the fanning and sultry walking around was somebody else. Exactly fun. And yeah, what I think is clever about that is that you can get things done in different sections and then just move and play with what you want. So it wasn't sort of like you do one take and that's the take, or you do sort of 3 takes of this scene and that's the scene. It was more like, well, we know what the body's doing, so let's just do loads and loads of vocal takes. But I was still doing everything physically in the space, in the motion capture studio, to try and make sure that eye lines are in the right place. And I mean, it's funny because my eye, which is her same eye, so if we're looking at the photo, it's this one, my eye blew up and I had like blood vessels pop in my eye because we were doing the camera and light work for quite a while. I think it was a long time. And so my eye completely blew up, and it was just, again, really interesting to see, because we didn't have an idea of what they were going to solidly look like. I had no idea what Wilhelmina was going to look like until the trailer, really. So seeing that this eye was then covered was like, oh, it literally was the eye that was bright red. Which was fun, always helpful.
Leads me to a later question that will pop up here. What's it like to see your voice and movement attached to a game character?
Super fun. I mean, it's fun. It's just like, this is a dream job. I think it's a job that many people who play video games, many people who love anything CGI, or you're literally in a different world, and yet you haven't physically been there. It's a really interesting concept that is fun to just keep on playing, and it gives you the freedom to go, I don't have to make this extremely modern or natural, or I can, like, I naturally speak a lot quicker than Wilhelmina does. I naturally speed through things quite quick, and I think that comes from being north of England. So having to go, well, she's going to speak a bit slower. Okay, right, how do I physically and mentally make myself go through lines and make sure that I'm staying at the same level so that over the next 2 years it's doable to keep coming back to. So to answer your question, it was just exciting to see how they built the world, and it's so beautiful. Like when you see videos or if you play it, it's just stunning, and you can believe that you're in that world with them completely, which I really appreciate. Then seeing my face move around.
When performing the role, were there any particular lines or moments that really stuck out to you, whether that's a behind the scenes moment or from the dialogue?
Mm. I don't know how much. If anyone's not played it yet, I don't want to give too much away.
I can put a spoilers tag for people.
Okay, great. Spoilers. Yeah. So for me, the scene with Allard at the end and Arisen, with her final resolution of what she's been trying to do. I really enjoyed playing that scene. Really, really, really enjoyed playing that scene. Just because it's a nice, in terms of character depth and plot and story and who she is, really. It's a nice way to end it, to feel like she got what she was always pushing for. So yeah, I felt like that moment specifically for me was really fun to have a play with. There's so many, and it was over 2 years as well. And sometimes I'd say like there was words that I had no idea how to pronounce, like no idea. And I was walking into the studio going like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say this word, but I'll have a go. So, but oh gosh, that's a really good question, because now I'm going to have to rack my brain. I mean, her opening line when you first meet her is just, well, and I loved the like, well, like who do we have here? I think her general, every single line she does has a little bit of sass, like a spiciness to it, that you've just sprinkled some chili flakes on top of it, and what comes is a spicy, saucy lady.
Would you care to give us a taste of Lady Wilhelmina in action?
Oh, okay. Again, like I'm trying to think back. You know, when your brain goes completely blank.
You know, it doesn't even have to be something from the game.
Oh, okay. So what do you want me to do? Do you want me to just what do you want? What do you want?
Just give us
Go
a
on,
taste of the
Jason.
character, just like a little.
Okay. Um,
Order someone
she
around.
yeah, she's spicy and saucy. So we'll say that she has a slightly lower sound, and she's lower in her she's bassier than I am. I mean, she's a proprietress, so she would sort of speak a bit like this, and oh, darling, like everything's a little bit rattled and slightly more relaxed, and not really um, showing that she's bothered, but absolutely is she bothered. Again, vocally, it's really interesting. As soon as you put yourself in front of a mic, you know exactly where you are. But when the mic's not there, it's like, oh, what do I do? What do I say? um, but yeah, I'd say she has a slightly lower tone. She, oh, Allard, where have you been, darling? She'd be a bit, well, if you must come with me, then you must. Come on, come see this. Don't be so slow, darling. Come. I mean, she never said darling, but that was what was always in my head. That she would be like, darling, come, please. And completely opposite when she's got a knife in her hand.
Should there be some sort of expansion and or sequel to the game down the road, is this a role you'd be interested in reprising should that happen?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. I mean, there's so much more you could learn about Wilhelmina, I think. I think there's so much that her story is, I think it's definitely finished. We see the end of it, but we haven't seen the beginning of it. We haven't really seen the story of how she got to where she is. I mean, you could go down a whole route of Wilhelmina, I think. Like you could give her a whole thing, which I'd be definitely keen to play with. That thing of like how does someone become hardened like she is, but yet have gone through quite a lot of grief and quite a lot of pain, and still maintain this thing of yeah, I think there could definitely be a sequel. I wonder if it could be a prequel, which is difficult to do with this plot. But you would maybe a sequel would be that you'd follow where Wilhelmina goes next. What would be her thing that she does next? Because she can't just sit still. You can tell from her that she's definitely not going to be someone who just goes, oh well, I'll just continue being a proprietress then. That's what my job is. I think she would probably use her skill set in many other ways. And her sort of underlayer of the story that she shows, the mask she shows on top with the underlayer underneath. I think the underlayer is what I would be really keen to continue playing. Give her more weapons. Let's make her into a full-blown like sausage.
What are your thoughts on the genre of like role playing or well RPGs in general?
Yeah, I mean, I play. If I'm not a massive video game player, I do play. Absolutely love just losing myself in a world. Like, I think it's kind of important as a video game voiceover artist to know where you are as an actor, and what sort of vibe you need to try and give, and how to really commit enough to make the player believe that they are following someone who knows what they're doing. Because I think if you sometimes can hear it in voiceover jobs where someone has no idea what this means in terms of video game world, and you can kind of hear it. You sort of like go, okay, so you have no idea what it means when someone says, come this way, or come follow me, or let's go this way. But you haven't got this. Go get it. So my opinion on it is that I think it's really fun, and I think we need to have things to be able to lose ourselves in, and ultimately this world is mad enough. And so having something like Dragon's Dogma 2, or one of these free roaming games that you can just go and do loads of different quests, and you can find different things, and you can really lose yourself in it. I think it's important to have something that's other to everyday life for me.
Do you see yourself being interested in additional game related performances in the future?
Yes. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. No, I definitely do. And I'm really keen. I have a background in movement and physical theatre and dance. And so physically, I'm really keen to go down the route of motion capture as well, in a physical way, and give myself those characters that are really physically different to me, because I find them just so fun to play. When you're playing sort of a character that's got a lot of like physical strength, but you might not have a lot, I think that's really fun to be able to go, okay, so I know that my shoulders are about this big, really, and I'm not 5'6", which is what I am. I'm actually 6'3". And how does that make me walk, and how does that make me sort of like move, and does that give me like an energy that's a bit heavier, or do I need an energy that's like slinky and a bit more like Wilhelmina? Is that what I need? So I'm definitely keen to keep going, and I just love the video game world's so fun, and the people in video game world are really lovely. Like every time that I've worked on one, it's just been really nice people just wanting to make really fun things and have fun and just enjoy the process of exploring these worlds and meeting people along the way. And whether that's that you're you're working in the studio as the sound guy, whether that's you're the motion capture person, or whether that's like you're editing later, or you're building the world, or you're drawing it, or you're like, all these jobs are just we're so fortunate to be able to do these things, I think, and to keep doing it is a joy, and so I would love to.
Lastly, I would like to leave a spot for you to say something or go over anything I might have missed during the interview.
Oh gosh. So for anyone who lives in England or London, I also do a bit of writing, and I have written a play, and it's going on tour in 2025. And it's about toxic masculinity within the East Midlands of England, and male mental health, and how important it is for us all to know and see it. And it's got a bit of mystery to it. It's very folklory. And yeah, that's going on in 2025, and it's called The Kingstone. And I hope to see people there.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Jason. It's been lovely. I hope that you can now go and sleep.